Hello, Charlie TCG here, and welcome back. Looking ahead, the series where I break down and analyze the meta was happening around Japan and how will it affect Taiwan. In today's video, I'm breaking out the remaining top 16 archetypes from the Champions League this past few weekends, and see the impact and influences really is having in the silly meta share a week on from it. So the likes of Archer and Ancient Box make it into the finals. Plus, a ton of brand new cards got revealed from the owner's set, which is going to be released next month in Japan, and I am so excited about them, as they're pretty much promise a very, very powerful archetype is returning. So, without further ado, let's jump right into the brand new cards. Now, of course, I'm talking about Hop as the new owner's Pokemon. It's really focused and showcased on this one, and it's incredibly powerful and a great, good promise. So, the main attacker obviously likes the Hop Dash and EX, 230 HP and 2 great attacks, 30 damage, and then 30 damage to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. They have attack doing 240 damage, and it can't attack next turn. On paper, this doesn't seem as strong, but Hop already has some incredibly good support. It's likes of Hop Snorlax, make sure that you can do additional 30 more damage to opponents to Pokemon, already incredibly powerful, and 2 very new promising sort of trainer cards as well, with a choice belt, which makes sure that you can actually attack for 1 colorless less and do 30 more damage to opponents up to Pokemon, and the stadium card as well, which does even more damage. So all of a sudden, that first attack, you can do 120 damage for no energies, and then 30 damage to opponent's bench Pokemon. All of a sudden, this is very powerful. It's obviously pretty much 2-hit KOs the entire format right now. With the basic of their basics, as well as also can KO the likes of Budew and Cleffa on the bench for his other attack, which is incredibly powerful. Actually, Brave Slash does exactly 330 damage to opponent's active Pokemon. So KO the likes of Dragapult and Charizard, which is very, very good key maths. So also, I think this is very powerful. Yes, the attack cost might be a little strong, but we also have Archer, which obviously is going to do incredibly well for good for energy acceleration for this archetype. Now, Hop's Cramorant as well is another sort of good attacking option. And the reason why I say an attack is returning because it's very similar to like Buzz Rock. And obviously, this attack is very similar to like the Baby Buzzwell. But you only can only attack with one if your opponent has exactly 3 or 4 prizes. If you do, you can do 120 damage. For all additional damage output, that additional 90 damage, you could do 210 damage. So it's powerful because this can kill the likes of Serpentipity and other really good key support Pokemon for potentially 0 energies. So I love that for Hop's Cramorant. And it could be an incredibly powerful attacking option. I've already mentioned Hop's Max as well. The only downside about when it can't stack, but I feel like that would be absolutely broken. All of a sudden, you can use like Close Cleave for like no energies and basically do like 150 damage or potentially even 180, which would be incredibly powerful. But the card which I'm incredibly excited and the return is Hop's Double, which is very similar to the archetypes which you've seen in the past before. Horn, which when you evolve is from your Hops Wooloo into Hops Double, you may switch one of your opponent's bench Pokemon to be there in that spot. Now, if you know this one before, you've seen it likes of the more recently, likes of Umbreon VMAX, but it's also been in like Lycanroc and Luxray GL level X. This is incredibly powerful, and the reason I love this one is obviously my wife's favorite Pokemon is Wooloo, so seeing that double is actually going to have a huge success when it evolves from is really, really powerful. Having a guaranteed gusting effect when we think that Boss's orders might rotate in potentially the year or two's time. This I think is really good. And it kind of makes this deck incredibly powerful. That's why I think like the Hopzation and Cramorant are incredibly powerful as well. They're having a quite potentially cheap attack cost and huge damage output to be very, very powerful. Now, of course, I did mention we did see that post get that Stadium card to do 30 more damage and the Hop's Choice Belt as well, which I think is great sort of synergies for these decks to do additional more damage. Now, Hop Scouting is a great supporter card which got revealed. You have to choose one. Search your deck for 2 basic Pokemon, fill them, put it in your hand or shuffle your deck afterwards, or search your deck for an evolved Pokemon. I think this is good in decks like Charizard, Gardevoir, and things like that. This can be a little bit slower, which want to have like a good searching factor to get an evolving card, but also great if you hit it on the first turn. Pretty much guarantee any 2 basic Pokemon. This is obviously be great in like some V-Star decks. Obviously, they'll be rotated by the time this comes out, but I think it's going to be really good in like the Ceruledge or generally Golden or any way as well, which can have really good basic Pokemon search route and also can really benefit them in the late game. Sorry. Exchange Ticket is another great sort of synergy option as well, which has a really good price manipulation. Here's a count your prize card, shuffle them, put them at the bottom of your deck, and then draw that many cards and put from the top of your deck and put them down as your face town prize cards. Now, I think this could be really good synergy, and I saw the likes of Jake Gearhart posted about it a couple of days ago. Flex aside from it, it's code breaking, that chance from 151, which lets you take additional prize card if you flip heads if you get this card. Now, this could be very, very scary. And effectively, you could win that way. It's going to be great in control as well, potentially putting some cards which you might want to keep in your prize cards, put it down at the bottom of your archetype your deck and put some cards which may be factually dead cards, or you select aside from his clear break and put cards which you do not want to have your prize card into them as well, which I really, really am a big fan of. Now, also, let's look at some other of these new. Spine EX, I think has got great potential. Like very similar to likes of that Nido Queen from Sun and Moon era from a few years ago. Now, 240 HP is quite a lot, and it has 2 amazing things going for this one. The ability Mammoth Cry lets you search your deck for a Pokemon reveal and put your hand. incredibly powerful. Just guaranteed to get any Pokemon and put it in your hand, incredibly strong. So its attack actually worth it as well. For 2 fighting energies, 180 damage, and then 14 more damage for each stage 2 Pokemon on your bench. Now, if you have a full bench of stage 3 2 Pokemon, you're doing an initial 200 damage. That's 380 damage for 2 fighting energy. Incredibly powerful and potentially could be a really good synergy as well. So I am a huge fan of this style of archetype. Now, granted, you have to get stage 2, but we do have the likes of the Grand Tree, you have Pidgeot EX as well to kind of guarantee another searching effect, or you also have Dusknoir, you also have Charizard. There's so many great sort of stage 2 Pokemon. Like if you just have a full bench of Mamoswine, you have Pidgeot as well, chuck even Dusknoir as well, only the trees to evolve into them, or even Togekiss as well, take additional prize card. There are so many good ways around this one, how you can have these full bench wide. Yes, you might not be set up until turn 3, but if you just have a couple bench Pokemon as well, you're doing if you have 3 stage 2 Pokemon on the bench, you're doing an additional 120 damage, 300 damage for 2 fighting energies. Very powerful. But I do think this Mamoswine might see some sort of rogue sort of style archetypes. I don't know if both Voltor potentially is a card that Iono really needed. Chain Bolt does 20 plus 20 for each lightning energy attached to all of your Iono Pokemon. And we were seeing Belly Bolt, which is a great sort of way to like flood the board with a ton of lightning entities. We have likes of Electric Generator as well, but it could potentially be the great attacking option. Granted, your deck might need to have like potentially even 15 energies, which some lightning decks already do play. Try and get all of them out and play to have these great sort of synergies out as well to get these big one-hit KOs on as a single prizer. But unlike likes of Shenpao or these other sort of will do additional damage, this is 20 plus 20. You're doing 60 damage already on its own for this one. If you have it potentially 10 on the bench as well, you're doing additional 200 damage. Plus it's where that's 260 damage for potentially 12 energies. Again, a little bit costly as well, but you are a single price Pokemon, which can be very powerful and definitely swing in your favor. And the last new card is a new Masquerada, which has a good ability, which makes pretty much if this Pokemon's meant to switch into active spot, do 180 damage if the opponent's active Pokemon is an EX. Granted, we have got the likes of what's it called? Double Turbo Rotating. But we do have Crispin as well, so we can have a good guaranteed one-hit kill on likes of Charizard if that deck is still going to be relevant. Now, let's actually break down the remaining list from the Champions League in Osaka the past few weeks. So we now know the full number was about 5,000 people, which is another huge event. We've had 2 big sort of Champions League back-to-back with over 5,000 people, which is incredibly strong. We've already talked about most of the top 8 results. We actually had nearly every single result, which I really was great about this one, except one of the Dragapult lists, which we thought was in top 8, actually was in top 16. It was 9th place. So I just changed that around there, and Miraidon was top 8. And the remaining of the top 16, we see a Lugia, a Gardevoir, 3 Dragapults, a Charizard, Miraidon, and Ceruledge. So if you think about them, 4 of the top 16 were Dragapult. We'll talk about it a bit later, but I think Dragapult really is the BDIF in this format. It's incredibly powerful, had pretty much like Return of Lance being incredibly powerful as a good sort of raw sort of factor. You already have your the Dracopes as well. It's an amazing one. And you have the likes of Budew. I think it's the best sort of abuser of that style archetype. Lugia, again, I think is really good. It got top 4, top 8, and top 16. Not many much has changed about this, but likes of Regigigas, it pretty much has completely changed Lugia for the better. Chaos as well has adapted very much from the last time. Having the Grand Tree and going more of the stage 2, so stage 1 going to stage 2 really has made it much stronger. And 2 copies of Ceruledge, 1 top 8 and 1 top 16. Again, it's something to really talk about as well, because I generally think this deck is really strong. And if we look when we look at the City League results later, it can definitely see the change. So let's actually break down these lists. The Dragapult top 4 list is very much, I would say, the absolute creme de la creme, the best way to play Dragapult from my personal testing and generally looking at it as well. It's pretty much guaranteed exactly there. It does play something that might be a little bit different. 2 copies of Budew and 1 copy of Klefki. Now, I love these ones. Budew, obviously, for that disruptor capability, that guaranteed item lock for 10 damage. And I was having that free retreat, that great pivot option. But Klefki, I think, is a really good way to slow down decks. Now, the decks we're doing really well right now with like some Miraidon and any of these complete decks similar the likes of a Ceruledge, which is doing incredibly well, even the likes of Raging Bolt. So Klefki in the actual spot, slowing down the opponent by making sure they can't use their Ogre they can't use their Scope abilities, they can't use some Miraidons. It's really powerful. That can make sure the likes of Technical Machine Evolution, which he sees a lot of play. Really play 2 copies of Lance to try and get a Dracopes, as well as also a Dragapult, which work incredibly well, and the likes of Budew. So also, having a Technical Machine Evolution on the Klefki, you're starting the opponent, yes, they may have their item cost, but they don't have any of the abilities. But you can also get 2 copies of Dracopes, potentially even a Dusknoir. And also you've got this draw factor as well, potentially some threatening some damage output in the next sort of game. Then a little thing different is you play 4 copies of Psychic Energies. I actually really like this one. It kind of makes sure that if you've got to be attacking with Klefki, you want to have additional energies out in play. So I think that's great as well. Rest of the deck, I wouldn't change too much. That's why I think this is one of the best ways to play Dragapult. Now, if we look at our top 4 Lugia list, we can actually see that it's a little bit different to where we've seen most before. Just play that Newman Tuner, which I like, but it is still going with like the Regigigas and that Wellspring Master Ogerpon. I really like Wellspring Master Ogerpon because obviously that sob to attack making sure you're actually locking something in active spot. You already have the attack to 100 damage and then 120 to on the opponent's bench record. But also, I think it's really good because we are seeing the likes of Trapagos and various hero underdepths can be playing in some raging bolt lists. So I think it's great as well. You can have that full bench size. You don't need to worry about sort of bench locking yourself. Or potentially, if you play you can over bench as well, they remove any of your liabilities like Luminion or sometimes even the excess of Lugia V-Star. I think it's really, really strong. Again, the rest of it, not too much to change. I love the Fortune as well, because if we're seeing the likes of Dragapult be up there at the top spot, you don't really want to play 2 copies of Regigigas. So this is kind of like your second Regigigas right there, and it's not cutting into any of the consistency or drawing into this one. Great Ball as well, another way to kind of like get any cards from deck. Great Ball, Dust Ball, kind of like going snip snap on which is the best sort of option. Again, the Stadium cards, not too different. Again, Lugia is in a great spot right now, and I generally can see these numbers increase as we go into Prismatic Evolution format and getting ready for EUIC. Now, if we look at the last of the top 8 list, which we're going to talk about, it's a Sterilage, and it's a little bit different to the next Sterilage, top 16. This one here obviously still plays like Palkia and does play that one copy of Budew. I also think Sterilage is a great attacking option with having that Budew option. Reason why I think it's great, because all of a sudden you aren't going to be getting that attack off turn 1 anyway, if you're going second. So again, it's really good here. It's a guaranteed sort of free retreater, which again is incredibly powerful and also helps with your setup. You might not get a big turn 1 KO like you'll normally get to, sorry, your turn 2 KO, so having a Budew can really slow down your opponent. I also love Secret Box as well in this archetype. It already has a guaranteed discarding effect, but also it gets you a support card, gets you that research, gets you that Pokestop, which I really, really like. Yes, you aren't really focused on tool cards as well, but kind of like guarantee getting these key cards is really, really crucial. I really like the Monkey Dory. I feel like this has become nearly a mainstay for the likes of this Sterilage as well. Kind of like moving around that 30 extra damage counter to actually pretty much guarantee it in like an additional energy cost in the bench. And obviously Palkia as well, it's a great sort of attacking option with having likes of Rain and Greninja. If we've seen the likes of these God of War decks and as well as Dragapults really kind of rise up to the top, having a guaranteed way to KO potentially 2 of their very powerful sort of setup cards is really, really powerful, and it works on the likes of Budew as well. So again, something to really consider about this one. I really am a big fan of this option as Sterilage. Now, this is a little bit different, the top 16 one. You can see here, it isn't playing the Budew, but it's playing like the Prime Catcher, and even has a copy of Jamming Tower as well. And also it still likes Briar. So again, not too different to how we've seen most of the format really kind of be played out. But again, I really like how Sterilage is kind of like going into this format. It had a little bit different cuts. The last one had a 3-2 line of Sterilage and a 1-2 line of Palkia. This one played a 3-3 line of Sterilage and a 1-1 line of Palkia. So again, a little bit different, but again, similar to strategy, similar to how we've seen Sterilage go around. And as we saw, it got a top 8 and top 16. This is a deck which definitely should be talked about going forward. Now, Rhydon, I think, is a great contender in this new format. It can really hold up with range of the decks. It's very fast, very aggressive. I put that definitely in the top sort of 5 archetypes in the new Prismatic Evolutions format. It has that great synergy by having Iron Hands from Rhydon and Raikou as a great sort of attackers option, right straight off the bat. It has that like so let's just have free retreat. And Raichu as well had a great sort of attacking option in the late game. Feel like some Magneton as electro generators, it can keep up by KO and these big sort of Dragapults and Charizard, which some decks might not really keep up with. Obviously, Pikachu is the main sort of Terra Pokemon you have in play. Mewtwo definitely was a bit more of unfavored because that would obviously be a 2 retreater. Now we have Latias, so you don't really worry about this one. But Pikachu, I think, is great as well, just having 1 energy anyway, even if potentially might start off with 1. Not too much difference to how we've seen Miraidon be played before, but I really am a huge fan of Miraidon going forward in this new format. Now, this is the second sort of Dragapult list we've kind of looked at. And again, the top 16 one is a little bit different to this one, but again, not too much. So again, if we actually see Dragapult overall, we can see that there's a common sort of theme. They're playing high counts like the 4-4-3 line of Dragapult, which is more common, 2-1-1 line of Dusknoir, 1 or 2 copies of Budew, playing 2 or 3 copies of Lance, because I think Lance is incredibly powerful. Next to the stadium cards could be played like some Artisan, or potentially generally having a look at the energy cards as well, being a 3-3 split of Fire and Psychic. So not too different how we see most of them to be played. So here is favoring like some Manaphy, so definitely respect likes of Sterilage a little bit more than other sort of decks. And Temple of Sinnoh as well, again, it really potentially respects the likes of Lugia, want to slow down their mist energies and get these big one-hit KOs on these Regigigas, or get rid of their legacy energy, or potentially actually spread some damage counters on this one. So again, a little bit different to how we've seen some Dragapult lists played, but again, not too dissimilar to how we've seen them go forward. This God of War list is really unique. The reason why I say it is we've seen the likes of Corbell, and Corbell I think is really, really good in a Budew style format. Let's see, notice this God of War list does not play the Budew, but I did believe the top 8 list did play it. So again, something to think about. But Corbell is great. You can only play it on your first turn. If you go second, you get a search deck for a support card. For copies one, so you're pretty much guaranteed to hopefully draw into it on your first turn. With having such a good draw factor as well, with like Iono and Greninja. This is great. Obviously, you can get this like from the likes of Arvin. So you can obviously use this to get support cover later in the term. Obviously, if you draw into this one, it's a great discard effect of the likes of Curlier. But again, talking about Arvin, you have the Precious Trolley, which is a great sort of supporter as well. So a spec to have a great sort of setup. Getting all your full bench, getting all your Curliers, getting for your rolls, getting all your potential Driftling, your Radiant Greninja. Having that full bench right at the end of start of your first turn is really good, especially if you're worried that you might get Budewed or potentially have that sort of threat on board, which I really, really like this in the start of deck. Again, going back to the Arvin one, and if you're not playing likes of Budew, Technical Evolution, I think is a great sort of inclusion somewhat in this deck. So again, I think that Gardevoir is in a great spot. A little different how we've seen most Gardevoir play with the cool button and Precious Trolley, but could just generally be the best way to kind of play Gardevoir going forward. Finally, the last list I want to talk about is Charizard. And this list has definitely changed from its heyday. We've seen a 3-2-2 line, 3-2-3 line of Charizard, sorry, a 2-2-2 line of Pidgeot, and a 2-1-1 line of Dusknoir. Why is this? Well, they're obviously scared of Rare Candy because they get shut off by Budew. Now that's why we're playing the likes of the Grand Tree as well. Go straight up to these guys from the deck, which is really, really powerful. Granted, obviously, Charizard, you always want to evolve into this one, but having a Grand Tree to set up your Pidgeots, potentially generally, that's always great as well. You do only play 3 copies of Red Candy, which, sorry about that. I think it's definitely a little bit too on the low numbers. So I would definitely want to try and still go up before, because you're only really going to get like a Pidgeot from like a Grand Tree or potentially Dusknoir. But again, if you save 1 or 2 Red Candies, it's still absolutely great as well. Again, the rest of the format, it's not too different to how we've seen Charizard kind of play around this one. People definitely have not been respecting like the Manaphy, so I can see the reason why Steroid is doing incredibly well, because if people aren't playing the Manaphy's in their play deck, Radiant Greninja becomes incredibly strong. So it generally be Shenpao's time to shine. As you know, I love Shenpao, and I generally think it could be if we've seen Charizard this play like this, and very different to how we've seen them be played in the past. So now I want to analyze the City League results from this past week, see how it's been influenced by the Champions League. And the answer is it has been hugely incremented and influenced by it. There only haven't been as many, only 46 City Leagues, but we see that Dragapult is right at the top, being 18.3%. That is an incredibly high number, and generally a great sort of spot as well for this one. Obviously, we know it's the best sort of contender with likes of Budew. You have already great sort of support as well, likes of Dracloaks, under the likes of you have Lance for to search them out, and obviously you can attack as early as turn 2. Which we said very differently from likes of Gardevoir, which I would put up as being one of the other strongest decks. It fell down to 12%. The only reason why I think Gardevoir is falling down is that most of them aren't really going back to likes of Budew. It can be a little bit slower. It doesn't have that aggressive sort of start which Dragapult can potentially have to offer. It can't really get attack off until like turn 3 sometimes, or even turn 4. Like this big sort of one-hit KO potential. If you're not running like a Budew, or if it's put under Budew's pressure. So it should definitely rise up to 12.1%. It's generally be a huge threat runner. We know it's a contender because they've got a top 16 place and a top 8. We've seen it do well time after time again. Constantly raise up the racket is a great sort of attacking option, especially has a great sort of turn 2 action. You have the amazing Palkia with the Radiant Greninja to actually take some advantage of the likes of these Dragapults and Gardevoir. Some decks which are doing incredibly well right now are the likes of Ancient Box, Ardralodon, as well as Luga. Obviously had huge deep runs and really well placements in the Champions League. So obviously it's no surprise at all. We've seen their numbers actually increase. Ancient Box, I feel like it's gone down a little bit. I think it's always at 7%. But 5.6, again, is still a great sort of number. Definitely could be very scared of the likes of Budew sort of style decks. But Ardralodon is really, really good. 200 damage, and this has 300 HP, and this doesn't have any weakness, so you have to do 300 damage, which is really, really good. And Lugia, of course, is going to do really well. Most popular decks right here are Terra Pokemon, and you have a single price Pokemon which can one-hit KO them. Rhydon being nearly 6% is really good because it's very fast, very aggressive. Budew, which I love. Again, if you haven't watched my mastering video, Budew, definitely please check it out. But a lot of time and effort in this one, and I think Budew is still in a great position right now in the format, even if you're playing like Budew as well, and they can still keep up in that sort of format. And Charizard being 6.1, we can actually see that it really has been influenced by the Champions League. The likes of Dragapult, Steroid, and Gardevoir numbers really increasing. Ardralodon really having a more deeper run. People are going to be looking at the winning list, or potentially the winning metagame, really making that meta cool as well. And there's a card as well, which I'm going to talk about very recently, where I've talked about Budew, and we've kind of seen this sort of format, but not exactly his impact, Budew really impactful. If we look at the top sort of 4 sort of placements, we can see that 21.1% of the top 8 placements have been that Dragapult. It is still up there at S tier, and it's nowhere near that because the likes of Gardevoir is next being 13%, Steroid being 12.5%, Lugia being just under 10%, and the B tier as well being Ardralodon being 7%, Charizard being 6.5%, and so along with Ancient Box. We're seeing the format very, very change. We aren't seeing Raging Bolt and Regidrago actually have any deep sort of style runs. We're not seeing Terrapagos do really well. It's kind of fallen the face off the planet in the Japan sort of format. So what I've seen there are a little bit of change to the format going forward. And talking about changing the format, we can see that Budew went from, again, 50% of decks, some even 75% of decks. Right now, after this week, was only in 31.4% of archetypes. Again, we can see that if we look back at here, we can see the main sort of culprits and one to use it of like the Dragapult, Sarah, even Gardevoir. That makes about nearly 30 or 40% of the format. With decks like Miraidon, Ancient Box, Golden Go, Raging Bull, Archer and Lugia aren't really running them. So potentially this is the reason why body numbers are really changing and really are shrinking. Obviously, at the start, we were incredibly terrified that body was going to be in every single archetype, but we are seeing those numbers are starting to dwindle. And it's really interesting to see that how the format is really evolving before and after a Champions League, where I would say before Champions League, body was in about 50, something even 60% of archetypes, but afterwards, 31% of decks are playing Budew. So generally, do we overreact with this card? Is this card not as influential, or is it something that in our format we have to develop it further? And obviously, Japan gets it a couple of months or so before, and they pretty much 2 weekends later played it in the Champions League. So the format wasn't exactly refined. So is Buddy's time still time to shine? And is the 31% going to increase, or is it going to constantly be going down as well, and not really that threat which we really thought it would be? So during looking ahead, is the metagame still changing? We've seen it kind of like evolve time and time again. We've seen Ardoradon now be up at the top. We've seen the likes of Raging Bull and Regidrago really decrease in their numbers of playing. So I generally think we are still in that metagame. It's constantly changing. But do I still think it's incredibly strong? Item Lock for no energies for 10 damage is really, really powerful. We may not have unlocked it yet. But we see the likes of the Quad Poison sort of style archetype with Terrapagos or that sort of like be the best sort of buter for Budew? Or generally, is it just kind of like only really good in Dragapult? And if Dragapult is going to be a 20% archetype, Budew is still going to be in 20 to 30% of different old decks. And what recycle term do you want to see in the future? We've seen the likes of Buzzrock come back in the likes of Zacian sort of decks. We saw like the likes of Shimpao. So like already seen that sort of resurgence in Iono style decks, and like sort of Throwawak is similar to like the Fusion Strike sort of thing. So what sort of new archetype do you want to see kind of like be postponed into these owner style Pokemon? Obviously, I'm really excited to see a return of owner's Pokemon. I think definitely seeing the Hop Zacian and that sort of style, I made me really, really excited. We've already seen many a fully fledged sort of archetype. So we have a ton of really good sort of synergies as well. I love that trainer cards really pretty much out there supporting these owner cards as well. So next week, I'm really excited to see exactly what Pokemon is really bringing. So, if you guys have enjoyed this video, I will actually speak to you obviously in a few days' time for new sort of shorts video. Hope you guys have an amazing sort of new year, and I hope you had a great sort of holiday so far as well. My name is Charlie TCG, and I'll see you guys later. Bye for now.